Europe burned. Nazi tanks rolled across France, their treads grinding hope into dust. By 1941, Germany's war machine seemed unstoppable. Luftwaffe bombers darkened the skies. U-boats choked Allied supply lines. America, still on the sidelines, faced a choice: watch the world fall or act. President Franklin D. Roosevelt, his voice crackling over radios, made a vow that stunned the globe: 300,000 airplanes. A number so vast it sounded like madness. Allies whispered doubts. Enemies laughed louder. In Berlin, Nazi propagandists seized the moment. Goebbels' machine churned out venom branding, FDR's pledge a lazy American fantasy. Der Stürmer ran cartoons of Uncle Sam, dozing under a pile of blueprints captioned, "Dreams don't win wars." The Reich's confidence wasn't baseless. Germany's factories, honed by years of militarization, churned out Messerschmitts and Junkers with ruthless precision. Their airfields brimmed with warplanes, each a testament to a nation geared for conquest. America, a sleeping giant, its industries still churning, cars, not bombers. The challenge was staggering. In 1941, the U.S. aviation industry was a shadow of Germany's. Factories lacked capacity. Plants were small, scattered, and geared for peacetime. Skilled workers were scarce. Most Americans still saw the war as Europe's problem. Technology lagged too. The P-40 Warhawk, America's best fighter, couldn't match the agility of Germany's Bf-109. FDR's promise wasn't just ambitious, it seemed impossible. How do you turn a nation unprepared into the world's greatest arsenal? How do you silence the laughter of an enemy already winning? The answer lay not in words, but in action. Across the Atlantic, the U.S. stirred. Factory owners, workers, engineers, they heard the mockery. They felt the weight of a world at stake. Could they rise to meet it? Could they build an air force from nothing, and do it in time? Factories hummed, but not loud enough. Willow Run, Michigan 1941. Ford's massive plant built for cars stood half empty for aviation. Blueprints gathered dust. The U.S. Army Air Corps scraped by with 2,000 planes, total combat-ready ones even fewer. Germany, over 1,000 aircraft battle-tested from Spain to Poland. Messerschmitt Bf, 109 seconds, sliced through skies like knives. Junkers Ju-87 Stukas dove with screams that broke morale before bombs hit. Across America, the gap glared. Detroit's auto lines churned Model Ts, not turbines. Aluminum shortages loomed. Every pot and pan begged for sacrifice. Workers' men enlisted, leaving gaps. Women stayed home. Engineers scratched heads over alloys untested for high-altitude flight. The B-17 Flying Fortress, America's heavy bomber hope, rolled out slow, one per day at best, from Boeing's Seattle plant. FDR's 300,000 mocked as delusion. Nazi papers jeered Americans build refrigerators, not fighters. Goebbels broadcast it nightly fuel for Reich superiority. Yet in Washington, planners mapped the impossible. The War Production Board formed. Priorities shifted: steel for wings, not washers. But how convert auto giants, train millions overnight? The wall seemed unbreakable. Raw materials funneled to Britain via Lend-Lease, draining U.S. stocks. Pilots trained on wooden mocks. One factory fire could halt a line for weeks. Germany advanced, refined, efficient years ahead. America lagged in mass production scales. Could raw ambition bridge it, or would laughter echo as Europe fell? Workers whispered doubts in lunchrooms. Engineers burned midnight oil. The clock ticked. Pearl Harbor loomed unseen. Turn the tide, or crumble. Detroit's air buzzed not with planes but with purpose. It was 1942, and the world hung by a thread. In Willow Run, Michigan, Ford's sprawling plant, once a cathedral of chrome and Model Ts, stood transformed. Conveyor belts built for car chassis now cradled bomber fuselages. Sparks flew from welders' torches, lighting up cavernous halls where men and women toiled shoulder to shoulder. The U.S., mocked as a nation of refrigerator makers, was forging an arsenal to silence the Reich. The shift was seismic. General Motors, Chrysler, Douglas Aircraft, Industrial giants pivoted overnight. Auto assembly lines designed for sedans were retooled for warplanes in months. Ford's Willow Run plant, dubbed the Grand Canyon of industry, stretched a mile long, its roof hiding a city of machines. By mid-1942, it churned out B-24 Liberators, heavy bombers built to pound Nazi fortifications. General Motors plants in Flint and Pontiac spit out engines and gun turrets. Across the country, 1400 factories flipped from civilian to military output, a choreography of chaos turned precision. Who made this happen? People, raw and resolute. Women poured into factories, their hands untested but steady. They were Rosie the Riveter, not a poster but thousands of real faces. Take Ellen Harper, a two-year-old from Dearborn, riveting B-24 wings with a gun that shook her bones. She worked 10-hour shifts, her apron stained with grease, her mind fixed on brothers fighting in France. Men joined too, teenagers too young for the draft, veterans too old for combat. In Seattle, Boeing's plant, two saw welders like John Carter, a farmer's son mastering aluminum joints under flickering lights. Their work wasn't glamorous. It was grueling, calloused hands, aching backs, and the constant hum of deadlines. Engineers were the unsung architects. At Lockheed Clarence Kelly, Johnson sketched designs for the P-38 Lightning, a twin-engine fighter that could outrun German Messerschmitts. His team slashed production times using modular parts that clicked together like puzzle pieces. Across the country, innovators streamlined processes. Conveyor belts snaked through factories, moving wings and cockpits to workers who no longer wasted steps. Aluminum, once scarce, flowed from Alcoa's smelters after scrap drives turned pots and pans into plane skins. The War Production Board, a bureaucratic juggernaut, rationed every ounce of steel, rubber and copper, funneling it to aircraft plants. By 1943, the U.S. produced enough aluminum to build 5,000 planes a year. The numbers tell a story of defiance. In 1941, America built 19,433 aircraft, respectable, but dwarfed by Germany's output. By 1943, that number soared to 8,6198. Willow Run alone hit a peak of 650 B, 24 seconds a month, one every 55 minutes. The B-24, nicknamed the Liberator, wasn't sleek. It was boxy, tough, built to carry 8,000 pounds of bombs over 2,000 miles. Its sibling, the B-17 Flying Fortress, bristled with machine guns, earning its name over German skies. Fighters like the P-51 Mustang with its Rolls-Royce Merlin engine began rolling out of North American aviation's Inglewood plant, each one a promise of air supremacy. Innovation wasn't just in machines, it was in spirit. Factories ran 24 hours, workers sleeping in shifts, cots still warm. In California, Douglas Aircraft's plant buzzed through blackouts, curtains drawn to hide from imagined Japanese raids. Training schools sprang up, turning clerks into mechanics teachers, into welders. In Kansas, Betty Thompson, a schoolteacher, learned to calibrate bomb sights, her hands steadying tools she'd never touched before 1942. These weren't just workers, they were a nation remade, each rivet a rebuke to Nazi taunts. Yet the cost was steep. Factory accidents claimed lives unguarded, machines mangled fingers, sparks ignited fires. Workers collapsed from exhaustion, their bodies pushed beyond limits. Supply chains strained, U-boats sank ships carrying bauxite, delaying aluminum shipments. The War Production Board's quotas were merciless, pitting plant against plant in a race for output. In Detroit, rumors of sabotage swirled. Could German spies infiltrate the lines? Fear hung heavy, but so did resolve. Workers saw newsreels, London's ruins, Stalingrad's rubble. Every plane built was a step toward ending that. Germany felt the pressure. Nazi propaganda, once smug, grew shrill. Goebbels' broadcasts called American planes flimsy, but Luftwaffe pilots told a different story. By late 1943, American bombers, escorted by P-47, Thunderbolts raided German factories, disrupting production of Focke-Wulf fighters. The Reich's airfields, once brimming, saw gaps. Fuel shortages grounded their planes. American output overwhelmed them. The U.S. wasn't just building planes, it was building a new reality. But doubts gnawed. Could this pace hold? Workers burned out, materials dwindled. Pearl Harbor's shock had unified the nation, but war's grind tested patience. Across the Pacific, Japan's Zero fighters still outmaneuvered early American designs. In Europe, German anti-aircraft guns shredded B-17 formations. The 300,000 plane goal loomed a beacon and a burden. Could America's factories, its people, keep pushing? Could they turn a taunt into triumph? The answer lay in the skies. B-17 seconds lifted off from new runways, their shadows crossing oceans. P-51 seconds climbed their engines, roaring defiance. On factory floors, workers like Ellen and John didn't pause, they hammered, welded, dreamed. The world watched, and the Reich's laughter began to fade. The skies roared with American steel. By 1945, the impossible was history. 304139. Aircraft built, surpassing FDR's audacious 300,000 plane vow. Willow Run's mile-long factory in Michigan spat out B-24 Liberators at a relentless pace, one every 55 minutes. In Seattle, Boeing's Plant 2 sent B-17 flying fortresses climbing by the thousands, their four engines humming defiance. From California, North American Aviation's P-51 Mustangs streaked into the fight, their Merlin engines outrunning anything the Luftwaffe flew. Germany's taunts, paper kites, Goebbels sneered, crumbled as American planes flooded the heavens. The numbers stunned. In 1944, U.S. factories peaked at 96318 aircraft, a tidal wave of production that dwarfed Germany's 40000. On the 6th of June 1944, D-Day's dawn broke under a canopy of 11590 Allied planes. C-47 Sky trains dropped paratroopers over Normandy. P-47 Thunderbolts strafed German bunkers. B-17 seconds and B-24 seconds hammered supply lines, starving the Wehrmacht's tanks. In the Pacific, Grumman F-6F Hellcats ruled carrier decks, sinking Japanese ships at Leyte Gulf. Each plane, forged by factory hands, carried a message. The lazy American fantasy was real, and it was winning. Who built this arsenal? Ordinary souls with extraordinary grit. In Detroit, women like Clara Evans, a 9-year-old mother, riveted B-24 tail sections, her hands blistered but steady. In Kansas, young engineers like Robert Lee, fresh from college, designed bomb racks under flickering lamps. Workers slept in shifts, cots lining factory break rooms. The War Production Board orchestrated it all, redirecting steel from skyscrapers to fuselages, aluminum from kitchenware to wings. Training schools churned out mechanics, former grocers, teachers, even teenagers learning to tune engines in weeks. This wasn't just industry. It was a nation united, each bolt a blow against doubt. The impact reshaped the war. In Europe, Luftwaffe airfields became scrapyards, their Messerschmitts grounded by fuel shortages and relentless Allied raids. By early 1945, American bombers flew unopposed over Berlin, their payloads flattening factories that once mocked FDR's dream. In the Pacific, P-38 Lightnings and F-4U Corsairs cleared skies for victories at Iwo Jima and Okinawa. The Reich's propaganda machine, once crowing superiority, fell silent. Germany's pilots couldn't match the sheer volume of American wings. But victory cost blood and bone. Factory workers died in accidents, presses crushed hands, fires swept hangars. Pilots perished in training their wooden trainers, no match for real combat. Supply chains teetered. U-boats sank warships, delaying critical materials. Yet the machine didn't stop. Clara, Robert, and millions more pushed through exhaustion, driven by newsreels of burning cities and fallen soldiers. They didn't just build planes, they built hope. The question lingered, could this unity endure? As 1945 dawned, with Germany crumbling and Japan reeling, the factories slowed. Workers like Clara wondered if peacetime could harness their fire. Could a nation that turned mockery into might repeat such a feat? The skies thick with American planes held the answer, for now they ruled. The war was won, but the echo lingered. In 1945, as Nazi banners fell and Japan surrendered, America's skies stood quiet, not from defeat, but victory. Over 30,40,000 aircraft from B-17 Flying Fortresses to P-51 Mustangs had rolled from factories, a testament to a nation that turned laughter into legend. The Reich's jeers, lazy American fantasy, lay buried under rubble, silenced by the roar of engines built by hands that refused to falter. This wasn't just a number, it was a story of human will, a blueprint for what belief could achieve. Step back to Willow Run, Michigan, 1945. The factory, once a sleepless beast, slowed its pulse. Workers like Clara Evans, who riveted B-24 seconds through blisters and blackouts, hung up their aprons. Engineers like Robert Lee, whose late-night sketches armed the P-38 Lightning, packed their drafting tools. The War Production Board dissolved its ration cards no longer needed. Yet the air hummed with something intangible, a pride that outlasted the machines. These weren't just planes. They were proof that a nation doubted and unready could rewrite its fate. Who were these people? Clara, a Detroit mother, wasn't a hero in headlines. She was one of millions. Her hands calloused from rivet guns told a story of sacrifice. She worked 12-hour shifts, her children asleep at home, knowing each wing she built might save a soldier, maybe her brother fighting in the Ardennes. Robert, a 2-3-year-old engineer in Kansas, wasn't a general. He was a kid with a slide rule, solving problems of drag and payload under deadlines crush. Then there were the unseen black workers in segregated plants like James Hill in Alabama, welding under scrutiny but with unmatched precision. Women like Betty Thompson in Kansas, calibrating bomb sites with a teacher's patience. Immigrants, teenagers, farmers' sons, all poured into factories, their differences erased by a shared goal. They weren't just building planes, they were building a legacy. The numbers, cold and stark, hide the heat of their effort. From 19433 planes in 1941 to 96, 318 inches, 1,944, America's output overwhelmed the Axis. On D-Day, 11590 aircraft shielded Normandy's beaches, a shield forged by workers who never held a gun. In the Pacific, F-6F Hellcats and B-29 superfortresses born in California and Kansas broke Japan's naval spine. The Luftwaffe, once a terror, was grounded by 1945, its fuel tanks dry, its pilots outmatched. Japan's Zeros agile, but few couldn't stem the tide of American wings. This wasn't the whole war, no single effort was, but it tipped the scales, plane by plane, rivet by rivet. What did it cost? Lives lost, not just in combat but in the grind. Factory accidents claimed hundreds, unguarded presses, mangled hands, chemical fumes, choked lungs. Training crashes killed young pilots. 15000 died stateside, learning to fly the very planes they built. Families like Clara's went without food, rationed nights, lonely. Yet they pushed on, driven by newsreels of burning cities, by letters from soldiers, by the sting of Nazi mockery. Goebbels' taunts, Americans build refrigerators, fueled their fire. Each completed B-24, each P-51, was an answer, a defiance etched in aluminum and steel. The legacy wasn't just planes, it was a mindset. America in 1941 was a nation of carpenters and clerks, not warriors. Its factories were scattered, its workforce untrained. Yet in 4 years, it became an arsenal, not by chance, but by choice. The War Production Board's ruthless efficiency, redirecting every bolt to the cause, showed what planning could do. Women like Clara proved strength wasn't bound by gender. Engineers like Robert showed innovation thrived under pressure. This was unity, not perfect, not without cracks, but enough to move mountains. Could we find that, today, when crises loom, climate conflict, division, could we muster that same fire? Think about it. The world of 1945 faced ruin. America answered with action. Today's challenges, global pandemics, technological races, fractured societies demand no less. Could a modern Clara, working late in a lab, solve a vaccine's riddle? Could a new Robert, hunched over code, build systems to save a warming planet? The 30,000 planes weren't just machines. They were a dare to dream bigger than doubt. They ask us now, what's your impossible goal? What's the laughter you'll silence? The factories are quiet now. Willow runs halls once alive with Sparks House museums. The B-17 seconds and P-51 seconds many scrapped, live on, in grainy films and veterans' tales. But the spirit, Clara's grit, Robert's ingenuity, James's resolve doesn't rust. It waits in you, in us. The Reich mocked FDR's vow, called it a dream. America woke up and made it real. What dream will you chase? What wall will you break? The legacy of 1945 isn't in the plains. It's in the courage to act, to build, to prove the doubters wrong. So stand in Willow Run's shadow. Hear the rivet guns echo the engine's roar. Feel the weight of a world that dared to hope. Then ask yourself, what can you build today? What impossible thing will you make true? The answer, like those planes, is in your hands. The war ended, but its pulse still beats. In 1945, as Nazi flags burned and Japan's empire fell, America's factories stood silent, not in defeat, but triumph. Over 304000 aircraft B-17 seconds, P-51 seconds, B-29 seconds had soared from assembly lines, a monument to a nation that turned scorn into strength. Nazi propagandists who sneered lazy American fantasy in 1941 were mute by VE Day. This wasn't just about planes. It was about people, millions, who defied doubt to reshape history. Their legacy asks us now, what can we build in our time? Picture Willow Run, Michigan, 1945. The factory's roar faded. Clara Evans, a riveter who hammered B-24 wings through endless shifts, set down her tools. Her hands, scarred from steel, held a quiet pride. Robert Lee, a young engineer in Kansas, packed his blueprints for the P-38 Lightning, his mind still racing with solutions. James Hill, a black welder in Alabama, left a segregated plant with his head high, his welds flawless despite the odds. These weren't heroes of myth, they were real, their sweat and resolve forging 96318 planes in 1944 alone. They answered FDR's call not with words but with work. Their effort was staggering. In 1941, America built 19433 planes, trailing Germany's 20000. By 1945, it delivered 304139, drowning the Luftwaffe's 40000 peak. On D-Day 11590, aircraft shielded Normandy, C-47 seconds dropping paratroopers, P-47 seconds strafing bunkers. In the Pacific, F-6F Hellcats and B-29 seconds broke Japan's fleet at Midway and Tokyo. Each plane carried a worker's touch, Clara's rivets, James's welds. The War Production Board, ruthless in rationing, turned scrap aluminum into wings. This wasn't the war's only key, no single act was, but it shifted the tide plane by plane. The cost was heavy. Factory mishaps killed hundreds, presses crushed fingers, fires swept hangars. Training crashes claimed 15000 pilots, stateside young men lost before combat. Workers like Clara skipped meals rationed to feed the war. Families fractured under the strain letters from the front, their only tether. Yet Nazi taunts Americans build refrigerators spurred them on. Newsreels of London's ruins of soldiers pinned in Bastogne burned in their minds. Each B-24, each P-51, was a rebuttal, a promise kept. Now shift to today, 2025. The planes are gone, many scrapped, but their lesson endures. America's feat wasn't just industrial, it was human. A nation of farmers, clerks, and housewives became an arsenal through sheer will. Clara, Robert, James, they weren't born ready. They chose to rise. What does that mean for us? Today's battles aren't fought with bombers, but with code, policy, and ideas. Climate change looms, rising seas, burning forests. Technology races forward, AI, biotech, quantum leaps, demanding innovation at breakneck speed. Societies fracture, polarized by screens and shouting. Can we match 1945's unity? Can we build our own 300,000 plane miracle? Think of Clara today. She's a lab tech, maybe working late to crack a renewable energy puzzle. Her hands, once on rivets, now pipette solutions for solar cells. Robert, he's a coder in a startup debugging algorithms to optimize global supply chains. James, a community organizer, bridging divides in a city torn by distrust. Their challenges differ, but the spirit is the same: grit, ingenuity, defiance of doubt. In 1941, America faced a world in flames. In 2025, we face a world in flux. The War Production Board's focus, every resource aligned, mirrors what we need now: coordination, sacrifice, purpose. Ask yourself, what's your factory? Is it a classroom teaching kids to think critically, a lab chasing a breakthrough, a community rebuilding trust? The 300,000 planes weren't built by generals or tycoons, they came from ordinary hands united. Today we need that unity, across borders, beliefs, backgrounds. Climate goals demand global effort. Tech races need ethical minds. Division begs for dialogue. What's your rivet, your weld? What impossible goal will you chase? The parallels cut deep. In 1941 shortages, aluminum steel threatened FDR's dream. Today, rare earth metals bottleneck batteries. Misinformation chokes truth. Then women like Clara broke barriers, proving strength wasn't gendered. Now diverse voices, scientists, activists, coders must lead. The War Production Board slashed waste. We need that efficiency to cut emissions, streamline aid. The 1940 seconds asked a nation to retool overnight. 2025 asks us to rethink energy systems values. Can we answer with the same fire? Doubt is our enemy now too. Critics call climate goals unrealistic, tech ethics impractical, unity naive. They echo Goebbels' taunts, dismissing ambition as fantasy. But history answers, doubt is fuel. Clara didn't pause when mocked. She riveted faster. Robert didn't quit when designs failed. He redrew them. James didn't bow to prejudice. He welded stronger. Their legacy isn't in museums, it's in us. What will you build to silence today's skeptics, stand in their shadow? Hear Willow Run's clang, the drone of a B-17. Feel the weight of 1945 when a nation turned laughter into victory. Now look around, your world needs builders. Climate won't wait. Tech won't slow. Division won't heal itself. The 300,000 planes were a dare, dream big act. Now prove them wrong. So what's your impossible? What will you forge in 2025? Take Clara's rivet gun, Robert's pencil, James's torch. The future's in your hands, build it.